Number 83, 900 readings. Crazy. That's the subject of today's video. As always, please like the video, comment on it below, click the subscribe button. All those things help other people to see these videos. So a few days ago, I gave my 900th mediumship reading. I know this because I keep a spreadsheet of all of my readings. And I suggest you do this because it has categories like, did I get a friend or family member? Did I get a male or a female? Did I get things like occupation or name or dates or things like that? So, and I use that, and it's nice to refer back to because I can see weird statistics like I get men slightly more often than I get women in spirit, or I can see how I add up the scores, and maybe I'll do a whole video on this, and I can see how I've improved over the years. So, and it's nice to be able to see stuff like that. So, my observations about all of that are these, because it's really, it's interesting. There's enough to do a video on. My mediumship keeps changing and evolving, and that's kind of annoying. And I'm told, I've heard from several people who've done this for decades, really good mediums, who have said that's just true. That's always going to be true. It's always changing. And some of the changes have been improvements, which is great, and some is just different. I just get the same thing different ways now. And that's kind of annoying. I was happy with the first way that I got something, as long as I was getting it clearly. Why change? And it feels like it's them. Like I feel like I'm doing the same thing every time. And so, as with all things in a mediumship reading, it's just best to roll with it. So I kind of roll with it. I would say the biggest improvement from my very early days is that I always just expect someone to be there because someone is always there. But I didn't just expect them in the beginning. I was really reaching and trying and whatever. I don't do that anymore. And I used to get, and one of the things that just changed, I'm working spreadsheets and databases for a living, and I know a 10 key number by touch. And so in my mind, I would put my hand on an imaginary 10 key. And when I was hitting 8 over and over again, I needed to say 8 or August, the 8th of the month, something like that. And now, and that worked for a long time, but now for the most part, my attention is just pulled to August or pulled to December or whatever it is. So it's a different way of getting it, but both ways worked. So that was weird. If I'm being honest, I prefer once something is working and really clear that it doesn't change, that I would always get that thing, whatever it is, that way, but it changes, it evolves, it's a thing. Unexpected for me in the last 900 readings is how being read so many times, because I let other mediums practice on me, and I've been read so many times, it's really changed my relationship with my family in spirit, being read as a sitter. And also being aware of those people now. I realize they've always been with me since they passed, but now I'm aware of when they're with me, which is kind of cool. It's comforting, and it's nice to know that they're there, and it's weird the times they show up, the random times, often when I'm doing silly things like driving or cooking or something, that's when they just show up. But also there's been a lot of healing. I have one relative, for example, who I was never close to and should have been because of our relationship. And this person, I knew his parents had died when he was a child, and I kind of knew, I remembered a conversation from my childhood a long, long time ago that his parents had actually been killed. And so, but I hadn't thought about that in decades, and someone got him in a reading and was really specific about his adult life. I recognized him immediately. And then she said, he's taking me back to his childhood. I feel like there's some traumatic event that changes his whole life and is with him his whole life. And I've got this really graphic, I'll just tell you, since we're friends, she's a friend of mine, she said, it's really graphic. Like I think I've come across a body. There's blood on my hands. I'm horrified. It's shocking. And I know this changes me forever. Like it haunts me for the rest of my life. And I thought, oh my God, he found his parents after they had been killed. No one had ever told me that, but it makes perfect sense from what I know about him, because who else would have found them? Basically. So he found his murdered parents. And of course that traumatized him for the rest of his life. And it wasn't just my relationship that was negatively affected. Most people who knew him didn't have the best relationship with him. So, so that was that. So that sort of, I see him in a very different light now. I've also gotten readings with some of my more difficult relatives. Mediums have read me, and I've seen their side of things, and I've thought, oh, I guess you could look at that situation that way. How weird. Because you're not me, right? Everyone looks at the way everyone looks at the world the way you do. So I've gotten a different perspective. And these readings that I've received as a medium have really softened my opinions and have softened my sadness and my anger about certain people and about certain situations. So I did not see the healing aspect for myself coming. Certainly for others, I experienced providing healing for others, but getting it was a nice surprise. That's been really good. It's also changed, being a medium has changed my perspective on human behavior, people who are here in the body. So because I've connected with a lot of really difficult people in spirit, and a few of them, for example, who showed me they were really controlling, like overly crazy controlling in their relationships, all of them have made me feel this terrible slipping forward feeling, like the way you would slip down a hill uncontrollably, except that they were sliding forward uncontrollably. And two of them really vividly triggered a memory of mine where I was driving someone else's car, a car that was not my own, and the brakes failed. And when I hit the brakes, the car just kept going, and it was this terrible feeling. And I didn't crash, I wasn't going that fast, but it was that kind of feeling that they gave me, and being controlling assuaged that out of control feeling in their hearts. And so that's why they were so controlling. It had nothing to do with the people around them or the people they were being awful to. It wasn't about that at all. So that was interesting. And I also, another man, just as an example, I connected with once, I knew he was super overwhelmed by life, like just overwhelmed and exhausted. And I knew, the analogy I gave, I remember in the reading, was that I was sure that at something like a Thanksgiving dinner, this guy would just maybe get up and pretend to go to the bathroom, but would go around the corner and just cry because it was just overwhelming, like life was overwhelming. And it turned out that that person had PTSD. And when he was in a war, he had actually hidden under the dead bodies of his friends to avoid being captured. And it was very traumatic. And it's not how I had ideas about PTSD, and maybe other people experience what I imagined it to be, but I know that that was that man's experience of it, and it was a terrible feeling. And so the biggest lesson really for me, my personal lesson, is that people in the body, people that are here, their outward behavior does not necessarily mean what you think it does mean, right? There's a disconnect there. And I understood that logically before I knew anything about mediumship, but now I get that really viscerally. So I'm a tiny bit more patient with difficult people while interacting with them, a little bit more patient, but the big thing is my annoyance and my anger does not last like it used to. Like once I've stopped engaging with someone who's difficult or a pain in the ass, that pretty much ends it. Whereas previous to all these repeated readings, that could ruin my day. Like if I had a really bad interaction with someone, I'd dwell on it for the rest of the day, or even sometimes more than one day. So that has stopped, and that's been really nice. So if you are developing mediumship, or you're considering developing or continuing to develop, it will change you. Not unlike having formal training or formal education later in life. I happen to know a lot of people who didn't go to or finish college until they were in their 30s or 40s. And you become a different person. It changes you. Education changes you. And learning to do mediumship and practicing it and becoming good at it changes you. So that's kind of neat. So that's that. Tomorrow, I am doing my first in-person live demonstration in a small theater, which I'm really looking forward to. So next week, I'm going to talk about that. Your first public dem. First in-person public dem. I've done them on Zoom. Your first in public dem, and things I wish I had known ahead of time, or things I do differently the next time. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But that'll be next week's video. Until then, thank you for watching this one. And as always, like the video, comment on it below, click the subscribe button. That helps people see these videos. Thank you, and